This happened a few months ago. I've never been the social type. I don't really go out, don't have a big friend circle, just two close friends from college and my job that keeps me busy. Most of my time is spent either studying, working, or scrolling late at night. One quiet night, I was sitting on my bed, scrolling through my phone. The dorm was still, only the low hum of traffic outside, the faint buzz of my phone charger, and the ceiling fan, ticking slightly offbeat, filled the room. It was the kind of silence that makes you notice every sound. I usually didn't accept friend requests from people I didn't know, but one popped up that caught my eye. Her name was Lena. I hesitated, thumb hovering over the accept button. Something about her profile picture, her eyes, the slight smile, made me curious. After a long pause, I tapped accept. Almost instantly, a message popped up. Hi. My chest skipped a beat. It was just hi. Simple, but there was something in it that felt intentional. Like she was waiting for me to respond. Her typing bubbles would appear instantly. Like she was waiting, always waiting. I typed back, fumbling a little with my words, and she responded immediately. The conversation was effortless, flowing. Small talk at first, classes, the weather, favorite music, but there was an ease to it like I'd known her for years. The soft glow of the phone screen reflected on my face, making the connection feel strangely intimate and a little too close. I found myself smiling at my phone more than I had in a long time. Over the next week, we talked almost every night. Sometimes she'd send memes, sometimes just a random thinking of you text. She laughed at my terrible jokes and remembered tiny details I didn't think anyone noticed. I realized I was looking forward to these chats more than anything else in my day. 2 weeks later, she suggested we meet in person. My heart raced when I read her message. Want to grab coffee tomorrow? I stared at the screen for several minutes, my hands shaking slightly. This was new territory for me, meeting someone from online, but I couldn't say no. The next afternoon, I found myself at the cafe she suggested. I arrived early, my backpack slung over one shoulder, nervously checking my reflection in the glass doors. The smell of roasted coffee beans and freshly baked pastries filled the air as I stepped inside. The faint clink of a spoon hitting porcelain repeated somewhere behind the counter. The warm smell of coffee turned slightly bitter as it cooled, and there she was sitting near the window, looking up from her phone. For a moment, everything else faded. "Hi," she said, her smile warm but unervingly focused, like she'd been waiting only for me. When I looked away for a second, I swear I saw her reflection smile before she did. We ordered drinks and sat down. I noticed the way she tilted her head, the way her eyes followed me when I spoke. It was flattering, even intoxicating. But as the conversation went on, I noticed something odd. A few men in the cafe glanced at her, some even whispering to each other. They didn't look angry or annoyed. They looked familiar. My stomach twisted. I brushed it off. Maybe it was nothing. Over the next few weeks, she started visiting the cafe almost daily. Sometimes she wore her hair differently, sometimes a hat, sometimes a wig. Each day, she seemed almost unrecognizable, yet somehow it didn't matter. My attention was on her. I started looking forward to her visits, and she always seemed to notice me immediately. One evening, she invited me to her apartment. My hands were sweaty as I read the message. "Come by. I made something for you." I felt a mix of excitement and nervousness. This was my first time being invited to a girl's apartment alone. When I arrived, the hallway was silent. The building smelled faintly of cleaning chemicals, and her door was slightly ajar. I stepped inside. The apartment was sparse, almost empty, and something about the quiet made my skin crawl. Shadows stretched unnaturally along the walls. The soft hum of the fridge stopped suddenly. Her footsteps sounded uneven, like someone else moved when she didn't. The glass of water on the table trembled slightly, as if something nearby vibrated. "Make yourself comfortable," she said, her voice lighter than usual. But her eyes, they didn't meet mine. They flitted around, scanning, calculating. She disappeared into the kitchen to get drinks. I noticed movement in the corner of my shadows that didn't make sense. My heart started to pound. That's when I saw it. A small bottle under the sofa, tipped over, liquid inside. The smell hit me first, sweet, chemical, sharp enough to make my eyes sting. My stomach sank. Chloroform. Panic rose in my throat. My mind raced, trying to make sense of what I was seeing. She came back, carrying 2 cups. I forced a smile, my hands shaking slightly. "Oh, is that we're calling you?" I blurted, pretending to check my phone. I fumbled with it, pretending it buzzed. She frowned, but didn't stop me as I muttered something about needing to take the call and stepping out for a moment. As soon as she turned away, I bolted, heart hammering. I didn't stop running until I was outside, gasping for air. My legs trembled, but the streetlights felt like safety. No one on the street looked up. No one saw me running. Just her, still at the window, smiling like nothing happened. Later, I confided in my only close friend about what had almost happened. He listened intently, then paled. "You know she's not just some random girl, right?" he said, his voice low. "She's part of a gang. They make guys fall for her, lure them somewhere isolated, and they disappear." My uncle, he's in a high post at the police. He's been tracking them for months. He warned me if anyone ever mentioned her. It was serious. I froze. All the little things I'd ignored. The other men, her constant changes, the shadows in the apartment, clicked into place. I never went back. I quit the cafe, deleted all her messages, blocked her online. Even now, months later, my phone lights up and I flinch, my mind briefly racing back to her smile. Every time I pass a cafe or see someone who could be her, my pulse quickens. The fear doesn't leave, and I don't think it ever will. This happened a few months ago, one chilly October evening. I had just finished my late shift at the cafe I work part-time at. Usually the last customer leaves around 11, and the streets outside are mostly quiet by midnight. I was wiping down tables, stacking a few leftover pastries, and watching the neon sign flicker outside when I heard her voice. "Hey, can you give me a ride home?" I looked up. It was her. She always seemed to show up right before I was about to leave, like clockwork. I noticed her weeks ago, mysterious, playful, always smiling in a way that made me feel like the only person in the room. I hesitated for a second, glancing at my jacket on the hook behind the counter. I mean, it wasn't unusual for me to give rides. Most of the late-night cafe regulars lived nearby. "Sure," I said, trying to keep my voice casual. She slid into the passenger seat of my car, tossing her backpack onto the floor. The smell of her perfume hit me immediately. Something floral, but not overpowering. I glanced at her in the rearview mirror. She was humming softly, tapping her fingers against the seat, and I felt my chest tighten. She had this effect on me, the way she laughed at small jokes, even when they weren't funny, the way her eyes seemed to follow mine even when I wasn't looking. "Thanks," she said finally. "I know it's late." "Yeah, no problem," I mumbled, starting the car and pulling onto the street. At first, the ride was normal. We drove past the familiar roads, the dimly lit neighborhoods, the occasional streetlight casting long shadows, the rustling leaves in the wind. Then, she asked me to turn onto a street I didn't recognize. "Just a little detour," she said casually, glancing out the window. I frowned but followed her directions. Something about the route fell off, too quiet, too empty. Houses looked abandoned, or maybe they were just dark, shuttered tight. A chill ran down my spine. "You know this area?" she asked playfully, leaning slightly closer. I shook my head, forcing a smile. "Not really. Just going where you tell me." She laughed softly, a sound that should have been comforting but made the hair on my neck stand up. The streets became narrower, lined with buildings that had long since closed, paint peeling, windows boarded up. I noticed the parking lots were empty, the neon signs flickering like they'd been there for decades. Unattended. "You'll like this place," she said suddenly. "It's quiet, very private." My hands tightened around the steering wheel. Quiet, private. Every horror movie I'd ever watched flashed in my mind. My pulse spiked, and I realized I didn't even know where I was. I tried to focus on the road, scanning for other cars or pedestrians. There were none. The streetlights were sparse, and the shadows seemed to stretch unnaturally. I felt her watching me, smiling faintly, but not saying anything. Then she pointed ahead. "Turn here." It was an unmarked road, gravel crunching under the tires, and I could see a building in the distance. A warehouse, maybe abandoned, its windows dark and grimy. My stomach twisted. This doesn't look like anywhere near home, I said, try to keep my voice steady. She shrugged, eyes glinting in the dim dashboard light. I just wanted to show you something. Trust me. I wanted to say no. My instinct screamed at me to turn around, but I froze. She had this way of making me feel like if I objected, I'd be letting her down. We drove closer. The warehouse loomed, silent, as if waiting for us. My mind raced. Why here? Why now? The thought that she might not be just another cafe regular, or a flirt, hit me like a punch to the chest. I remembered something a friend had once told me about these kinds of situations. If it feels off, it probably is. I swallowed hard, pretending to adjust the mirror. I think I left something at the cafe, I muttered. I should probably go check. She tilted her head, curious, but didn't protest. Okay, sure. I exhaled, heart hammering. I put the car in reverse slowly, then turned around, keeping my eyes on the warehouse from the corner of the mirror. My hand shook as I drove back the way we came. She said nothing, just stared ahead, and I realized how dangerously close I'd been to following her anywhere she wanted. By the time I reached a lit, familiar street, I felt my knees go weak. I parked, motioned for her to step out. She gave me a small, enigmatic smile, stepped onto the sidewalk, and disappeared into the shadows of the streetlights. I didn't wait. I locked the doors, checking the rearview mirror obsessively as I drove home. Every corner, every alley, every abandoned building we'd passed flashed through my mind. My chest ached, and I realized just how easily someone could be manipulated, how quickly ordinary curiosity or a crush could turn into something dangerous. I never gave her another ride. I stayed later at the cafe, closing with coworkers when possible, or called friends to come along if I had to leave. And sometimes, when I'm driving late at night, a small, familiar scent drifts past, perfume, floral, faint, and I can feel that same chill crawl up my spine. This happened a few months ago, on a Thursday night. I had been at the campus library for hours, the kind of night where the glow of your laptop feels endless. My shoulders ached, my fingers stiff from typing notes. By the time I stepped outside, the air felt colder than I expected, sharp enough to wake me up. The courtyard was quiet. The streetlights hummed with that faint electric buzz. A few moths circled around them, like tired satellites. The bus had stopped running, so I opened my ride-hailing app, entered my address, and waited. ETA, 5 minutes. I leaned against the wall, scrolling through my phone. The screen glow reflected off the metal door beside me, the only thing moving in all that stillness. When the car arrived, a black sedan, clean, ordinary, I double-checked everything. The plate, the name, the photo, all matched. Still, my stomach twisted with that familiar unease you get when you're alone at night and trusting a stranger. I opened the back door and slid in. The leather seat clung slightly to my jacket. The driver looked at me in the rearview mirror, smiled faintly. "Evening," he said, voice calm, steady, almost too polite. "Evening," I murmured back. The car pulled away from the curb. The city lights blurred by, turning into long ribbons of color across the windows. The hum of the tires filled the silence. For a few minutes, it was normal. Just quiet roads, the soft rhythm of a turn signal, and the driver making light small talk. "Late night study session?" he asked. "Yeah," I said, trying to sound casual. "Library closes late." He nodded. "Ah, hard-working." His tone was flat, no warmth in it, just a statement. Then the questions changed. "So you live alone?" The way he asked wasn't curious. It was deliberate. I hesitated. "Yeah." "Family nearby?" "No." He smiled again, eyes fixed on the road, but there was something new behind them, that quiet kind of focus that makes your skin crawl. The streets started to change, narrower, darker, the kind of roads you don't notice until you realize you shouldn't be there. I glanced at my phone. No signal. The bars flickered once, then disappeared. I whispered, "No service." But he heard me. He smiled, just barely. "That's normal here." Dead zone for a few miles. Something about the way he said it made my throat go dry. My brain started racing. "Think." Think, is this a shortcut? I asked, pretending to sound casual. Something like that, he said. His voice was too calm. Don't worry, you'll get home soon. Outside, the streetlights grew sparse. The car's headlights stretched shadows across the road. Houses sat dark and still, some half-built, some boarded up. The kind of silence that makes you realize how alone you are. My hand was slick with sweat. I could hear my pulse in my ears. If I jumped, I could break something. If I screamed, no one would hear. So I tried something else. Hey, I said, forcing a smile. I think my friend's waiting for me. Can I just call him real quick? He slowed slightly, voice smooth. Sure, go ahead. I held the phone in my ear, pretending to talk. Yeah, I'm on my way, you're outside, right? His eyes flicked toward the mirror, watching me. That smile again. Small, knowing. The next intersection was empty. One flickering streetlight, the rest drowned in darkness. He turned down it. I knew I had seconds. Sorry, I said suddenly, fumbling with my bag. I think I dropped my wallet earlier. He glanced down for just a second, and that was enough. I yanked the door handle. Cold night, air slammed into me. I jumped. The asphalt hit hard under my shoes, pain shooting up my ankle, but adrenaline took over. I ran, fast. I heard the car brakes screech, a door slam, his voice shouting something behind me. I didn't look back. Up ahead, a small gas station glowed under harsh white lights. Open 24 hours. I sprinted across the lot and shoved the glass door open. The clerk looked up. Hey, you okay? I was shaking, breathing so hard my voice came out broken. I think someone tried to. I couldn't finish. My throat locked. He moved quickly, called the police. I sat down, clutching a bottle of water, watching my hands tremble under the fluorescent light. Every detail replayed in my head like a broken loop. The tone of his voice, the way he asked if I lived alone, the silent roads, the missing signal. I had been lucky, very lucky. Now, I never use ride-hailing apps alone at night. I double-check the car, the driver, the route, everything. And sometimes, when I'm walking past quiet roads late at night, headlights sweep across me, and I freeze. Because in that split second, it feels like that car again, the one I almost never escaped.